There is a rugby brand as old as the game itself, and over the decades it has become synonymous with both rugby union and the Rugby World Cup. From boots to clothing to body armour and most famously rugby balls, the Gilbert Rugby brand is a global leader in the sport, and the Rugby Business Network has the incredible pleasure of speaking with brand manager worldwide, Andrew Challis. Andy, thank you for taking the time to speak with us about this incredible brand.
That's my pleasure.
Before we actually speak about Gilbert Rugby and its inner workings of the company, I must mention, Andy, that you once actually played rugby yourself for Harlequins and then became the team manager for some time thereafter. Did this have any influence at all on the type of career that you wanted to pursue once you decided to hang up your boots?
Very much so. When I was team manager at Quins, it was very much in the early days of professional rugby. It was almost like the Wild West, I'd say. We were making up as we went along. And so as things started to bed down, I was spending quite a lot of time working with players, interacting with new club sponsors, with sort of influx into the commercial side of the club. And having done it for 3 years, one tends to think it's time to move on. And it was that side of sports marketing and sponsorship that really did interest me. So that's the area I decided to concentrate on and went into agency work straight after leaving Harlequins.
Well, in the lead up to actually working for Gilbert, you were the business director at Fast Track Sales Limited. What did you enjoy most about your 9 years with this company? And in what ways did it perhaps prepare you for the role that you would eventually take up at Gilbert?
Fast Track is a sports marketing agency. At that stage was quite small, actually. It was only about 7 or 8 people. But interestingly, set up by Alan Pascoe, who many would regard as one of the best in the business. And Alan, really as a mentor, guided the early years of my career in sports marketing and sponsorship. And it was incredibly varied. And the reason I was there for 9 years is because as the company grew and is now part of a much bigger network, there was plenty to do. And in fact, during those 8 or 9 years, I didn't do anything to do with rugby until really right to the very end. But in actual fact, working across so many areas of government, rights holders, sponsors, and particularly activation gave me a great breadth of understanding. And the knowledge transfer was fantastic.
And you, of course, went on to apply that knowledge and skills into Gilbert, where in 2008 you became the brand manager worldwide. What attracted you to the job in the first place, Andy? And what are your key responsibilities now within the company?
As I said, at Fast Track I was doing no rugby at all, and yet towards the end, some rugby accounts that came into the company. At the very end, I was actually managing our youth athletics business, and I was actually at Crystal Palace at a Diamond League event, and Usain Bolt was on the track. But at that point, I was in the media centre watching some rugby on the TV, and it really sort of struck me that actually it was probably about time that I moved on, got back involved in the game. And I was fortunate enough to find the opening at Gilbert, transferring the skills, going into probably the biggest, best pure rugby brand was a great opportunity. So that's how I got in there. My key responsibilities are I run the brand, so I look after all of the commercial side, and we have obviously a myriad of deals at all different levels across the world, as well as actually advising our product developers on the product range, particular attention to the rugby ball, obviously, and then also look after our global marketing.
Wow. Well, I'm sure it has been an incredible journey for you so far during your almost 10 years at Gilbert. Over this time, though, you have been involved with possibly hundreds of deals. But what would you say are some of the standout ones for you that you are particularly proud of securing for the company?
Yeah, I think it's always great the privilege to partner with any organisation, be it a local rugby club or a tournament. But actually, the deals that really stand out are those with World Rugby for me. The initial deal that we were able to do for the 2011 and 2015 World Cup combined. But probably it's the most recent deal, actually, that has seen Gilbert be the official ball supplier to World Rugby for all of their tournaments from this year all the way through to 23, which includes the 2 World Cups, the Women's World Cups, the junior tournaments, and several others besides. But that's a major standout point for me. But of course, actually last year was the absolute privilege of seeing a Gilbert ball used in the Rio Olympics. I mean, that for me was a great pinnacle. I was delighted to see that.
Yeah, such a fantastic moment it was. Well, most rugby supporters across the world, Andy, would probably tell you that when they think of Gilbert Rugby as a brand, they think of the balls created before all the other equipment and merchandise that the company also manufactures. What would you say it's about Gilbert's rugby balls that rival other competitors, considering that it has been the official ball of all the Rugby World Cup since in 1995, and as you've just mentioned, it's also now the official rugby ball for the upcoming 2019 and 2023 Rugby World Cups?
With anything, for us it's consistency. The Gilbert family concentrate on making product. And we probably, out of any other manufacturer, concentrate on the real detail of making those elite match balls. So it's consistency, it's pride in our product, and it's always seeking to innovate and keep ahead of the game. That, in a nutshell, that's what keeps us ahead of our competitors. And also just never being complacent, always striving to improve the product, even when people could be forgiven for thinking, what else can you do with a rugby ball? But it's tweaking, it's just making sure that we stay in line with the development of the game at the top level, and that's the key area.
Yeah, and I suppose that as technology evolves, it grants you that opportunity to try tweak certain areas, I would imagine, when it comes to manufacturing. Now, Andy, could you describe for us, for our listeners, generally how a deal is reached with a rugby union or a rugby club to become their supplier? Do they approach Gilbert, or does the company have to go out and look for where a deal can be struck?
Combination of both, actually. And I think we are very proactive. We do go out to seek to form relationships at the lower level, the local level. We have a sales force within the UK who actively work at the grassroots level, working with clubs and schools, and we're more than happy to sign local deals, not just for balls, but also for our growing teamwear section. But then as one goes up in size of deal, then very much that's just to keeping a breadth on the tournaments, the leagues, etc., such as the Viva Premiership, Guinness Pro 14, more locally, or even Super Rugby on those deals. And they tend to be a combination of sponsorship, supply and licensing, and that's the licensing side where the return comes from. It's a combination of both.
Very interesting. Well, all amazing products and businesses which are like Gilbert, at times they're obviously going to receive some criticism on a certain scale, Andy. The lead up to the 2011 Rugby World Cup is one such instance. You will obviously know, having been there during the time, where some international players and coaches, they complained about the ball manufactured that year to be used for the upcoming tournament. What is the process that is followed when a ball is created, and when these sort of frustrations are voiced, how does the company respond?
You're quite right. It can never always be 100% fantastic all the time. And indeed, in 2011, there was just probably by one coach and one player during the tournament. The way we deal with that is being prepared and knowing that our product that we send particularly to the top level international tournaments is rigorously tested. So in 2011, as for 2015 and all the World Cups, we test all of the balls beforehand. So for 2011, all the balls were kicked by Paul Grayson, believe it or not, down in Franklin's Gardens in Northampton. Paul Grayson himself, obviously, had a World Cup winner himself. So we were 100% certain that all the balls that we sent over to the tournaments, and the same for 2015, were 100% okay to be played with, and were, importantly, completely consistent across. That said, rugby is a game with human interaction, and when we do get comment back, we always investigate. We ask for the ball back, which we get the balls back so we can test them. When we actually speak to the players, our development process is very much when we're developing a ball, we go and speak to the players, we speak to the unions, we speak to World Rugby as to actually what they want out of the ball, what they want the game to look like. So we work very closely with them. Hence that's why the ball that is always put in the World Cup is always played with at all levels of rugby at least a year beforehand. It may look different, but it's exactly the same ball.
Fascinating how that process all works and fits together. Now, as a brand manager, Andy, what area of the company's dealings do you find that you often need to pay a little bit more attention to than others, and that can at times provide you with the biggest challenge to overcome?
It very much is keeping on top of our brand position. I'll be the first to acknowledge that we have a very strong brand position, particularly for the rugby balls at top level, and maintaining that position. We could be forgiven for almost becoming complacent at times, but that is our worst enemy. Keeping on top of that, always understanding that we are in an incredibly privileged position, and that privileged position can go in the blink of an eye. So it's a question of maintaining our relationship and always innovating and continuing to build the trust that we've built up over many, many years in the life of the brand. So that's the challenge.
Well, it is a great quality to try and maintain, no matter what size the company is or what service or product they deliver. Now, one of Gilbert's sister companies, Andy, is obviously the sporting goods manufacturing company known as Grays, who purchased Gilbert when the business experienced some financial difficulties in 2002. Can you tell us a bit more about this partnership and how these brands work together?
Just a bit of an overview of the company structure. Yeah, Grays is a family-run business. Mm-hmm. It's about 190 years old, wow. So it's very established. And you're quite right, they bought Gilbert when it was on its knees, really, in 2002. And, Grays were great owners of the brand because Grays historically, over that period of time, make things. They own Gray Nichols Cricket, so they make cricket bats, to understand that. They own Grays Hockey, so they make hockey sticks. And so taking care of Gilbert and building Gilbert up, making product, making the best rugby balls, as well as the best cricket bats and best hockey sticks in the world, is a fantastic fit for the group. So Gilbert certainly benefited from all of that experience. Across the brands, we work quite closely because as leaders in our respective sports, there's a lot of knowledge and cross-fertilization of ideas that we can put through in product development. The guys developing hockey sticks may have a material or something which would be of interest to our product developers on rugby balls, or perhaps something that they're doing on the marketing side with Alistair Cook, a Gray Nichols ambassador in cricket, might work for some of our ambassadors in rugby. So there's quite a lot of cross-fertilization of ideas.
Amazing. And Grays has its presence in sports such as obviously hockey and cricket, as you mentioned, whereas Gilbert, do they also have an invested interest in sports away from rugby, or is it solely rugby that is the priority?
We pride ourselves that Gilbert as a brand is purely a rugby brand, a rugby union within rugby. We do place the Gilbert brand on our netball business. Netball is a growing sport, certainly very strong in New Zealand and Australia, and growing in the UK, but predominantly and certainly within the field sport area, we're a rugby union brand, and we keep it like that. And the same with our other brands. Gray Nichols is a cricket brand, and Grays are a hockey brand. And we don't like to cause confusion in the market by trying to be broader than that, because that specialism comes with trust, I think, from our target market.
That is actually a sensible approach to take. Well, Gilbert has such an incredible and rich history. How does the company, though, now in the 21st century, try to maintain those values and the ethos of the brand, which was created so many decades ago?
It's an interesting one. With an historic brand such as Gilbert, which is as old as the game and has its roots in the town of Rugby, we must always remember where we came from, but always look forward. So we try to combine a combination of trust in the values of the game, trust in all the relationships that we hold, but we have to innovate. And if we don't innovate and move with the modern game and the trends that are out there in the sports marketplace, then we would very quickly find ourselves floundering. And from that comes performance. We are a performance brand, and our sales are driven from the top level, which then drives things down. So it's important for us to remember that, which is why we enter into long-term relationships with our partners, which then projects us forwards over the years and decades. So we have a strong ethos, which we like to keep in line with the ethos and values of the game.
Well, that is wonderful to hear. Now, lastly, Andy, what are some of the plans or innovations that Gilbert is working on? Obviously, you can't reveal any of your trade secrets, but what can the rugby community look forward to from the company in the coming year?
Well, it will come as no surprise that we are working on a new elite rugby ball. We've recently launched the look and feel of the Rugby World Cup ball for Japan 2019, but that's not the technical ball. That's the more retail version. The technical ball will be launched probably this time next year, and will be used in all of the major leagues across the world a year out from the Rugby World Cup. So there'll be innovations. We're, as I said a little bit earlier in this discussion, we're about to embark on a mini world tour, going to meet various coaches and unions around the world to get their feedback. So the innovation will come through, but there are some exciting things. I mean, in this modern age of technology, and talking more digital and social media, then there are opportunities to link the rugby ball into that whole space.
Wow, some incredible innovations definitely to look forward to in 2018 and beyond. Well, it is undeniable that Gilbert is such a brilliant rugby brand with an amazing history to go with it. Thank you, Andy, for providing the Rugby Business Network with the opportunity to learn a bit more about how this company operates.
No, it's a pleasure. Thank you.